In the grim darkness of the far future, death is the only constant. Yet there are deaths that are not merely casualties of war. They are statements of absolute power. Beneath the golden light of the throne, there exists a shadow so deep that even the Inquisition hesitates to peer into it. This is the domain of the Officio Assassinorum, the Emperor's ultimate sanction, where human beings are stripped of their souls and rebuilt into the most terrifying predators the galaxy has ever known. Imagine a high-ranking rebel governor surrounded by an army of elite guards in a fortress that can withstand a planetary bombardment. He feels safe, perhaps even untouchable, but in the silence of the night, a single breath is drawn a mile away. There is no sound, no flash of light, and no warning. In an instant, his head disappears, and with it, the rebellion dies. This is not just a murder, it is a surgical removal of an infection from the body of the Imperium. But what is the cost of such perfection? To the Officio Assassinorum, a human life is merely a raw material to be forged, broken, and reassembled. Behind the myths of the great Clades lies a reality of chemical torture, psychological erasure, and ancient technologies that defy the laws of nature. You are not just looking at a secret organization, you are looking at the dark mirror of the Emperor's own will, a necessity born of a dying empire's desperation. As we peel back the layers of this sinister institution, we must ask ourselves, what remains of the person inside the mask? Is there any room for mercy in a heart that has been replaced by a logic engine or a chemical pump? Today, we are not just telling stories of death. We are decoding the horrifying price of survival in a universe that wants us dead. Stay with me, for the shadows of the Imperium are much longer than you think.
The roots of the Officio Assassinorum are buried deep in the era of the Great Crusade, a time of legendary heroes and galaxy-spanning ambition. It was the sigillite, Malcador, who understood that for the Emperor's vision to succeed, the Imperium needed more than just armies. It needed a scalpel. During the dark days of the Horus Heresy, the founding masters of the first 6 Clades gathered in secret to swear their loyalty, not to a law, but to the survival of the human race itself. In those early days, the Assassinorum was a tool of ultimate necessity. While the Space Marines fought the wars everyone could see, the Assassins fought the wars that no one was allowed to know about. They were the ones who liquidated the traitors before their words could poison a world. They were the hidden hand that ensured the bureaucracy of the burgeoning Imperium remained loyal through sheer, cold-blooded fear. However, the organization was never truly stable. By its very nature, it attracted those who believed that the end always justifies the means. This philosophy, while effective, created a culture of extreme paranoia and isolation. The temples of the Clades were hidden on Terra and across the galaxy, operating as independent city-states that answered only to the Grand Master of Assassins. This autonomy was their greatest strength, but it would also become their most dangerous flaw. To become an initiate of these temples is to enter a world of absolute secrecy. Most candidates are orphans of the Imperium's endless wars, children with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. They are subjected to trials that would kill a normal human 10 times over. By the time they emerge as fully fledged assassins, their original names and memories are often long gone, replaced by a cold, unwavering devotion to the kill. The Vindicare Temple is perhaps the most famous, yet the most misunderstood of all the Clades. They represent the pinnacle of human patience and marksmanship.
A Vindicare assassin does not just shoot a target. They orchestrate a death from miles away, often spending weeks or even months in a single position, motionless, waiting for the perfect microsecond. To them, the act of killing is a form of high art, a mathematical equation solved with a single high-velocity round. But consider the mental toll of such a life. To be a Vindicare is to exist in a state of perpetual detachment. They see the world through a scope, reducing living, breathing people to mere trajectories and wind speed variables. This level of focus requires more than just training. It requires a systematic stripping away of empathy. They are taught that any emotion, even a flicker of hesitation or a moment of pity, is a failure that could compromise the mission and the security of the Imperium. Their equipment is as sinister as their training. The Exodus rifle is a weapon of terrifying power, capable of firing specialized rounds that can penetrate the thickest tank armor or dissolve a psychic shield. Their stealth suits are woven with mimetic fibers that allow them to vanish into any environment. Yet the most dangerous tool in their arsenal is their own mind. A Vindicare can slow their heart rate to almost zero, becoming a ghost in the machine, invisible to both infrared sensors and the naked eye. There is a tragic loneliness to the Vindicare. They are the ultimate observers, yet they can never truly be part of the world they watch. They spend their lives in the shadows of high spires and the dust of ruins, waiting for a target they will never know, on behalf of a master they will never meet. When the bullet finally leaves the chamber, it is the only connection they have left with the universe, a brief, violent bridge between the watcher and the watched. If the Vindicare is the scalpel of the Emperor, the Eversor is the sledgehammer, brutal, messy, and utterly unstoppable. Unlike other assassins who rely on subtlety, the Eversor is a bioengineered nightmare designed for one purpose: total shock and awe. They are sent in when a message needs to be sent, not just to kill a target, but to eradicate everyone and everything associated with them. The sight of an Eversor is the sight of inevitable explosive destruction. The creation of an Eversor is a descent into biological madness. They are not merely trained, they are reconstructed. Their bodies are pumped full of hyper-aggressive combat drugs and stims that keep them in a state of permanent, blinding rage. To prevent them from burning out or killing their own handlers, they are kept in cryosuspension between missions. They spend decades, perhaps centuries, in a frozen dream of slaughter, awakened only when the Imperium needs a monster. When the cryopod opens, the Eversor is a whirlwind of violence. Their executioner pistol fires bolts and needles laced with neurotoxins, while their power gauntlet can tear through ceramite like paper. But their most terrifying weapon is their own chemistry. Their blood is so toxic and volatile that if they are finally brought down, their internal systems undergo a catastrophic failure, causing the assassin to explode in a cloud of corrosive chemicals and shrapnel. You must understand that there is no person left inside an Eversor. They are a collection of combat instincts wrapped in a failing biological shell. They do not feel fear, pain, or remorse, only the burning need to tear the world apart. This is the horrifying reality of the Emperor's mercy. Sometimes, to save a world, the Imperium chooses to unleash a beast that embodies the very chaos it claims to fight. Now we must speak of the Culexus, the most unsettling of all the Clades. Even in a galaxy filled with demons and aliens, the Culexus is an anomaly that should not exist. They are chosen from the pariahs, individuals who possess the untouchable gene. They have no soul. In the warp, where the spirits of living beings flicker like candles, a Culexus is a hole, a freezing void that sucks the light out of the universe. The mere presence of a Culexus causes physical and mental agony to those around them. To a normal human, they feel like a cold shadow creeping down the spine. To a psyker, they are a waking nightmare. Being near a Culexus feels like drowning in an ocean of nothingness, as if your very essence is being erased. This is why they are the ultimate weapon against sorcerers and demons. They don't just kill the body, they extinguish the warp fire that sustains them. Before we venture further into the shadows of the Callidus and the hidden Clades, consider this. The Imperium survives only because it is willing to use the unthinkable. If you find these decodings of the grimdark reality essential, ensure you are subscribed to Silent Imperium. Join our growing legion of watchers to ensure the light of knowledge never fades from the darkness. Now, let us return to the horror of lost identity. The Culexus Clade utilizes a terrifying device known as the Animus Speculum. This helmet focuses their anti-soul into a concentrated beam of negative energy that can incinerate a target's mind instantly. Yet even within the Assassinorum, they are outcasts. Other assassins find it difficult to stand in the same room as a Culexus, and their handlers often suffer from permanent psychological trauma. To be a Culexus is to be the ultimate protector of humanity, while being fundamentally excluded from it. The Callidus Temple specializes in the art of deception, but this is not the simple disguise of a spy. A Callidus assassin uses a shape-shifting drug called polymorphine to physically rewrite their DNA. They can change their height, their gender, and even their species. They have infiltrated orc warbands and Eldar courts, living for years as the very things they are meant to destroy. But the price of this power is the total loss of the self. Imagine waking up every day and not knowing what your original face looked like. For a Callidus, identity is a tool to be discarded. They must master the psychology of their targets so perfectly that they stop acting and start becoming. This constant shifting of the physical and mental form leads to a unique kind of madness. Many Callidus assassins eventually suffer from personality fragmentation, where the masks they wear begin to bleed into their own shattered psyche. Their primary weapon is the Cetan Phase Sword, an artifact that exists partially in another dimension, allowing it to bypass any physical armor. It is a weapon of alien origin, used by the Emperor's servants to kill his enemies. This irony is not lost on those who know the truth. The Callidus represents the Imperium's willingness to use any heresy, any forbidden technology, as long as it ensures that a traitor's throat is cut in the dark. There is a profound horror in the life of a Callidus. They are the ultimate strangers, always watching, always mimicking, but never belonging. They are the poison in the cup and the knife in the back of the trusted advisor. When they finally strike, the victim often dies looking into the eyes of someone they thought they loved, only to see a cold, mechanical void staring back as the polymorphine fades. While the four great temples command the most fear, we must not ignore the Venenum and Vanus Clades. These are the practitioners of the subtle death. The Venenum are the masters of toxins, not the explosive rage of the Eversor, but the silent, undetectable poison that claims a life weeks after the assassin has left the planet. They understand that sometimes the death of a tyrant must look like a natural tragedy to avoid creating a martyr. The Vanus Clade, on the other hand, fights a war of information. They are infosites, masters of the data stream. A Vanus assassin doesn't need to be in the same room as their target. They manipulate logistical networks, cause reactor meltdowns, or leak sensitive information to rival factions. They kill by orchestrating accidents and coincidences. In the modern Imperium, where everything is connected by ancient, crumbling networks, the Vanus are perhaps the most dangerous of all. These Clades remind us that the Officio Assassinorum is not just a collection of killers, but a multifaceted machine of statecraft. The Venenum ensures that the wheels of the bureaucracy turn smoothly by removing the friction of dissent. The Vanus ensures that the enemies of the Emperor are defeated by their own hubris and technical failures. Together, they represent the invisible infrastructure of terror that keeps the Imperium from collapsing under its own weight. To study these hidden Clades is to realize that no one is safe. You cannot hide from a bullet you don't see, a poison you don't taste, or a computer error that shuts off your life support. The Imperium has mapped every possible way a human can die, and they have built a temple for each one. This is the sinister perfection of the Assassinorum, a total monopoly on the end of life itself. To control a monster, one must be prepared to become part of the cage. In the Officio Assassinorum, the relationship between an assassin and their handler is one of the most complex and dangerous bonds in the galaxy. The handler is the link between the high command and the weapon on the field. They are responsible for the logistics, the extraction, and the mental stability of individuals who have been stripped of their humanity. It is a role that requires nerves of steel and a total lack of sentimentality. However, even the most experienced operatives can falter. Within the lore of these shadow wars, there is often mentioned the one mistake that gets assassin handlers killed. That mistake is the illusion of control. A handler may begin to believe that because they hold the codes to the cryopod or the keys to the armory, they truly command the soul of the assassin. They forget that they are not dealing with a soldier, but with a highly refined biological apocalypse that is only one glitch or one emotional trigger away from total redirection. The paranoia of a handler is not a sign of weakness, it is a survival mechanism. They must live with the knowledge that if their charge is compromised, their own life is the first to be forfeit to protect the temple's secrets. They are watched by the very organization they serve, knowing that a single lapse in judgment, a moment of pity for an Eversor, or a lapse in security for a Vindicare will result in their immediate liquidation. In the world of the Assassinorum, the only thing more dangerous than the target is the weapon you carry. This constant state of high alert erodes the mind. Handlers often become as cold and detached as the assassins they manage. They see the galaxy not as a place of people, but as a series of mission parameters and risk assessments. When we look at the sinister secrets of this office, we must recognize that the handlers are the silent victims of their own expertise. They are the jailers who can never leave the prison, bound by duty to a system that views them as just another expendable gear in the machinery of death.
There is a reason the High Lords of Terra fear the Officio Assassinorum more than almost any other institution. That reason is the Beheading, a dark chapter in Imperial history where the Shadows decided they should no longer be the servants, but the masters. During the reign of Draken Vanzich, the Grand Master of Assassins, the office orchestrated a systematic slaughter of the High Lords. It was a demonstration of absolute power that nearly brought the Imperium to its knees, proving that those who control death
can control the state. The beheading serves as a permanent warning of what happens when the tools of the emperor are turned against his own government. It revealed the inherent danger of an organization that operates with total autonomy and zero transparency. For a brief, terrifying period, the galaxy was ruled from the darkness of the assassin temples. Every word spoken by a governor, every decree signed by a lord, was done under the literal shadow of a blade. It was the ultimate expression of the sinister secrets we have decoded today. Eventually, the rebellion was crushed, but the scars remain. Today, the Assassinorum is bound by a complex web of checks and balances, including the oversight of the Inquisition. But the memory of the beheading ensures that the relationship between the High Lords and the Grand Master is always one of mutual simmering distrust. They need the assassins to protect the Imperium, but they live in constant fear that the blade will one day find their own throats again. This event forces us to confront a chilling reality. In a system built on fear and assassination, no one is truly in charge. The power of the throne is only as strong as the loyalty of those who kill in its name. The beheading was not just a coup, it was a philosophical crisis. It proved that in the grim darkness of the far future, the most dangerous enemy is not the alien or the demon, but the very weapon you have sharpened to protect yourself. We have walked through the hidden temples and looked into the empty eyes of the Emperor's most loyal monsters. From the soul-crushing void of the Culexus to the chemical madness of the Eversor, the Officio Assassinorum represents the ultimate sacrifice of the few for the survival of the many. They are the grim necessity of a universe that offers no room for weakness. They are the monsters we need to fight the monsters at the gate. The sinister truth is that the Imperium cannot exist without them, yet it is diminished by their presence. Every time an assassin strikes, the Imperium survives another day, but it moves one step further away from the light of humanity it originally sought to protect. To be a citizen of the Imperium is to live in a world where your life can be erased by a shadow you never saw, for a reason you will never know. As we close this decoding, remember that the silence of the Assassinorum is the silence of the grave. They are the Emperor's final sanction, the dark mirror of his will, and the eternal guardians of a dying dream. Thank you for joining me in this descent into the shadows. If you have the strength to face the truth of the grim dark future, subscribe to Silent Imperium. We will continue to pull back the veil, no matter how terrifying the reality behind it may be, for the Emperor and for the survival of mankind.